Today on the Save It for Parts channel, we've got this thing. I'm not actually sure what it is. This is one of those gadgets that just looked cool, so I bought it without really knowing what it does. I got this at a surplus sale. It's got a little QWERTY keyboard, tiny little screen, some kind of a swipe card reader here, and not much else. There's no power supply, there's no obvious ports on it. There is this little jumper cable going over to the card reader part, but other than that, there's really nothing to tell you what this thing is. Now, I did look it up online, and apparently it's some kind of a fancy time clock or attendance device. So if you're doing a class or a job site, you can swipe in, and this will keep track of when you clock in and out. Since there's no obvious way to get power into this, I think we're going to have to start by just taking it apart a little bit and seeing what's in there. Now, a lot of the screws are these recessed safety hex things, but the back ones are just regular Phillips, so this part at least seems to be semi-user serviceable. Alright, so we've got some kind of little single board computer in here. We do seem to have a serial port. We've got an Ethernet port. Actually, two Ethernet ports. There's one here, and there's this one that's hanging out. We've got this little RJ11 port. Again, I think that's the one that goes over to the card reader. And then these look like jumpers out to the screen and probably the keyboard. Looks like there's 12 volt DC in as well. So I suppose you could throw a battery in here and run it off the battery, or use an external power supply. And actually there is a little battery underneath here. If you look underneath, there's some kind of a NiCad cell or whatever. This is one of those devices that seems unnecessarily huge for how much it's actually got in there. And it has this tiny little screen, tiny little keyboard. I don't know why it's so big and heavy, unless it's just designed to be a time clock in an industrial environment and they think that the workers are going to take a baseball bat to it when they don't get overtime or something. Let's keep taking some of these screws out, see what else is in here. Fortunately, I do have a security bit set, although it's not actually long enough to get down these recessed holes, so we're going to have to get a different screwdriver. Okay, here we go. There is a little more brain in here, including PC card slot. I think that's what our Ethernet cable is going to. So this is definitely one of those devices that's really obnoxious to work on without disconnecting all these little ribbon cables. You can't really fully open it because the cables get stuck. I propped it up against the wall here so it doesn't torque those cables too much. Pulled out the PC card. Yeah, this is actually a local company here from Mounds View, Minnesota. I don't know if this is any kind of standard, if there are any drivers for this card, or if this is just a name brand card with a custom sticker on it. There are two PC card slots, and they made them really inconvenient to use. There's this little plastic thing holding the cards in place. There's these extra little clips, plus the standard locking buttons. So I guess they decided that the standards weren't good enough, and you had to mount these in there extra securely. Again, this thing looks like it's supposed to take abuse. So I think they were really expecting the employees to just attack this on a regular basis. There is a hole up inside here that looks like it's for a Wi-Fi antenna. And with two slots, you could put a wireless card in here. Although, again, who knows what kind of drivers this thing uses or what's actually compatible with it. There's only one screw holding this board on, but then these blocks here are like glued in place. Alright, so here's our actual main board, minus the keyboard ribbon cable that I had to pop out so I could do this. Some sort of VG-230 processor. I'm assuming that's the processor. A whole 2 megabytes of memory. And yeah, 1990s it looks like on this. I'm not sure if I can run Linux on this thing, or maybe I can pull all these boards out, throw them away, and put a Raspberry Pi in here. Alright, well, let's feed this thing 12 volts and hope we didn't jostle anything too much while we were rooting around in there. Alright, so we've got a flashing cursor, but it won't let me input anything with the keyboard, so I don't know if it's still booting or if it's looking for a network or what's going on here. Alright, I did find a manual online for this thing and a possible way to get into a configuration menu. Well, we can definitely get into the config menu and do some stuff. Apparently this is supposed to have a version of DOS on it, but this one doesn't. Somebody's either deleted the files off of drive C or something else happened to that. So the terminal I have is installed with firmware version 6 point something. It seems like they got all the way up to version 8, but unfortunately the self-extracting exe file is far too old to run on my modern computer, even in Windows 95 emulation mode. Okay, I found an upgrade utility that actually runs under modern Windows, but it seems to be looking for a file that doesn't exist. So this one that I found online didn't come with the actual firmware file. It does look like I can get this basic serial port file copying program running. Okay, we found a USB serial port, actual serial cable, and a gender changer, because I have not thrown any cables out since the 80s. We have the serial port adapter that triggers Republicans, and I'm pretty sure that this is actually from a TRS-80 Model 100 that I used to have. Kind of wish I still had that laptop. That thing was fun, but hey, at least I still have the port adapter. So I'm digging through manuals and README files and all kinds of stuff online, and all the files and programs that I want seem to be stuck in those self-extracting exe files from the 90s, which I can't get to extract on modern Windows. Let's see if we can get this file copy program to actually talk to the thing. That doesn't seem to be working. Let's try a different COM port. Well, all the settings look the same over here as they do on here. I think the serial port on this little terminal might actually still be in use by whatever default application is running. It's still looking for a barcode scanner or something, so I'm going to see if I can kill that. Alright, let's see if the serial port's doing anything. Okay, I don't seem to be getting anything through the serial port in either direction. And yes, I did go back and fix that from 8 to 7. Alright, out of desperation, I've pulled out the old MS-DOS laptop, which sort of works. I actually found a USB floppy drive down in my hoarded junk pile, and some blank floppies. Now there's the sound of technology. Well, I'm having a heck of a time getting Windows 98 to stay running, and now it thinks I have a virus. Whether or not it's an actual virus or it just really hates this Intermec Trakker software, I don't know. And the floppy drive on this is not working. It's just making a terrible noise and failing, so it might actually be time to retire this broken-ass laptop. Okay, we're just going to try to use the COM port directly using some more common old standards. And we'll set up the Trakker to do the same. Well, at this point, this Trakker Antares terminal seems kind of useless as is. The prior owners seem to have deleted all the useful things off of it, so there's no DOS, there's no terminal emulator. I don't have a way to communicate with other stuff other than possibly that direct serial port connection, but I can't get that to work from any other computer. So basically have no way to get new software on here or to get it to talk to anything else to act like a terminal emulator. So I guess my only other option is to pull out all the guts, throw them away, put a Raspberry Pi in there, and use it as a really heavy, really inconvenient mobile computer of some sort. Now I could drill into it and put extra ports, put antennas, put some sensors in it, make it into another Pi quarter type thing, some kind of cyberdeck thing. Again, if I used a Raspberry Pi, I'd have a lot more options for what to do with it. But I'm not going to do that right this second because I have a million other projects to do, including other Raspberry Pi stuff. So we're going to set this aside. Maybe we'll come back to it. If anyone out there has any suggestions or ideas for what I could try, anything that I could sort of do with it as is would be appreciated. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.